My name is Lillian Hernandez. I'm 41 years old, and I work as an accountant at a small firm in Denver, Colorado. I don't make a lot of money, I don't live in a big house, and my life isn't flashy enough to impress anyone at a holiday dinner table. But everything I do, every spreadsheet I balance, every late night I push through, I do for one person. My daughter. Riley is 7 years old. She has soft curls that never seem to stay brushed, and fingers that are always stained with crayon or pencil graphite. She loves drawing animals, houses, imaginary worlds where no one yells and no one compares. She is my entire world. Her father, my husband, passed away in a car accident 3 years before that Christmas. Riley was only 4, too young to understand why one day her dad tucked her into bed, and the next day he never came home again. For months after the funeral, Riley would stand by the window every evening. She'd press her hands against the glass and ask, "Mommy, is Daddy lost?" Each time she asked, something inside me cracked open. After he died, I promised myself one thing. No matter what, I would protect Riley. From cruelty, from shame, from the kind of words that never leave you. I didn't know yet that I would break that promise on Christmas 2022. That afternoon, Riley sat quietly in the back seat as we drove the nearly 20 miles to my parents' house. Christmas lights blurred past the windows. Her legs swung back and forth, excitement buzzing in her small body. About 10 minutes into the drive, she suddenly asked, "Mom, does Daddy celebrate Christmas in heaven?" My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Every Christmas, she asked about him, and every year I had to find the strength to answer without falling apart. "Yes," I said softly. "He's celebrating with the angels, and he's looking down, seeing how beautiful you are. I know he's proud of you." Riley smiled. Then she turned back toward the window and started humming a Christmas song, off-key, sweet, unaware. In that moment, I felt the weight of everything I carried alone. I was mother and father, protector and provider, and I believed, foolishly, that my parents and my older sister would understand that. They were family. They were blood. I had no idea that in less than an hour, nearly 30 relatives would watch my 7-year-old daughter be torn apart by the very people who were supposed to love her most. We arrived around 5 p.m. Riley jumped out of the car, grabbed my hand, and pulled me toward the front door, laughter already bubbling out of her. Inside, the living room was full. My older sister, Elena, sat on the couch with her husband. Their 2 children, Brian, 8, and Jordan, 10, were already dressed perfectly, like they were posing for a family magazine. Elena and I had never been close. She owned a successful business, earned more in a month than I did in a year, and never let me forget it. In her eyes, I was the emotional one, the one who chose meaning over money. Her children had trophies. Mine had drawings. As soon as Brian and Jordan saw Riley, they jumped up. "Riley!" Brian shouted. "We've been waiting for you!" They grabbed her hands and pulled her toward the Christmas tree, whispering excitedly about a small gift they'd hidden just for her. Watching them, my chest loosened. At least Riley had cousins who cared. At least someone in this house saw her. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe this Christmas would be different. I was wrong. I went looking for my father and found him in the backyard, laughing with relatives. Riley spotted him before I could stop her. She let go of my hand and ran over. "Hi, Grandpa. Merry Christmas." He didn't smile. He didn't respond. He looked straight past her and directly at me. Riley's smile slowly faded. Seconds later, my father spoke, his voice proud. "Brian just won first place in the school chess competition. And Jordan placed second in the county debate contest." I nodded politely. Then his eyes flicked toward Riley. "Why doesn't she have any awards?" he asked. "You should push her harder instead of letting her waste time drawing." Heat rushed up my neck. "Riley grows at her own pace," I said carefully. "She loves art. She's talented." My father snorted. "You always make excuses for failure." Before I could respond, my mother called everyone inside for dinner. The argument paused, but the damage had already begun. As I took Riley's hand and walked toward the dining room, a heavy dread settled in my chest. Something was coming. I just didn't know how cruel it would be. The dining room was packed. Nearly 30 people squeezed around the long table. Laughter echoed. Glasses clinked. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air. Riley scanned the table, searching for a place to sit. Then her eyes lit up. An empty chair, right next to Grandpa. She let go of my hand and hurried toward it, small feet light with hope. Her fingers touched the back of the chair. She was just about to sit down when my father's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Stop!" Every sound died. Riley froze. She looked up at him, confused. "You can't sit there," he said coldly. The room held its breath. Riley swallowed and whispered, "Why, Grandpa? I wanted to sit near you." I stood a few steps away, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. My father set his wine glass down slowly. Then, in front of everyone, in front of all our relatives, he looked straight at my 7-year-old daughter and said, "A failure like you doesn't get to sit near me. So embarrassing." The world stopped, and everything I believed about my family shattered in that instant. The silence after my father's words was the kind that didn't feel empty. It felt sharp, heavy, like the air itself had turned into glass. For a second, Riley didn't move. Her small hands were still gripping the chair back, like it was the only solid thing in the room. Her eyes blinked once, twice, like her brain was trying to translate what her ears had just heard into something that made sense. But it didn't make sense, because adults weren't supposed to say things like that to a child. Not to their own granddaughter. Not on Christmas. Slowly, Riley's fingers loosened. They slid off the wood like her body had forgotten how to hold on. Her arms dropped to her sides, limp, the way a doll's arms hang when you stop playing with it. Her mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. Then her lips began to tremble. And I saw it, the first tear swelling up in her eyes, growing heavier and heavier until it spilled down her cheek. That single tear hit me like a slap. Something inside me, something trained for 41 years to be quiet, to be polite, to swallow pain because family is family, snapped clean in half. My body moved before my mind caught up. I stepped forward. The crowd parted automatically, like they could feel the heat rolling off me. I walked past stunned faces and relatives who suddenly found the tablecloth very interesting. I didn't stop until I was standing directly in front of my father. "What the hell did you just say to my daughter?" I shouted. My voice wasn't loud because I wanted attention. It was loud because I couldn't breathe otherwise. Someone dropped a fork. The metal clanged against porcelain, sharp and ugly in the silence. A baby somewhere started to fuss, confused by the sudden tension. I had never yelled at my father like that, not once in my life. I'd spent decades shrinking in front of him, smiling when he insulted me, nodding when he compared me, swallowing my pride so the dinner wouldn't turn unpleasant. But this wasn't about me anymore. This was about the 7-year-old child behind me who still hadn't moved from that chair. My father looked at me with cold, challenging eyes. Not regret. Not even surprise. Just irritation, like I'd interrupted him while he was speaking. "I told the truth," he said. "You want me to lie?" He lifted his chin and gestured toward Elena's kids like they were trophies on display. "Look at Brian and Jordan. First place in chess, second in debate, and then look at your kid." His gaze flicked toward Riley like she was a stain on the carpet. "What does she have? Aren't you ashamed?" I felt my teeth clench so hard my jaw ached. "She's 7, I said, voice shaking with fury. "Do you hear yourself? She's 7 years old, and she lost her father when she was 4. My father didn't even flinch. "So what?" he snapped. "Is that an excuse for her to be lazy? An excuse for you to spoil her? You're raising her to be useless, just like you." The word useless landed like a punch. Not only was he hurting my daughter, he was stabbing through me, too. Through every struggle I'd survived. Every night I'd cried alone after Riley fell asleep. Every time I'd wished I had someone to share this weight with. Before I could speak again, my mother stood up. Her face was tense, but not with outrage. With discomfort, like she was annoyed the evening was being ruined. "Lillian," she said, voice pleading. "Calm down. Your father only wants what's best for Riley. He wants her to strive for more." I turned to her so fast my vision blurred. "Best for her?" I repeated, almost laughing. "You call humiliating a child in front of 30 people what's best for her?" My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for support. And Elena, my older sister, the perfect one, chose that moment to stand. She moved to my father's side like it was muscle memory. Her husband stood beside her, arms crossed. And suddenly the picture became clear. It wasn't just my father. It was the whole system. Elena looked at me with the same condescending expression she'd worn since we were teenagers. "Dad's right," she said. "You're too soft. You always have been. You keep letting Riley do whatever she wants, and you're shocked she doesn't achieve anything." My nails dug into my palms. "And you," Elena continued, voice crisp and sharp, "you love playing the victim. But parenting takes discipline. Brian and Jordan are successful because we actually push them." Her husband nodded like a silent judge. Then Elena added something that made my stomach drop. "To be honest," she said, "we don't really let Brian and Jordan spend too much time with Riley. We're worried it'll affect their focus. Kids absorb habits, you know." That sentence was so cruel it almost didn't register at first. because she said it so casually, like it was normal, like my daughter was contagious. All around us, the relatives began to murmur. Chairs scraped. People leaned in. The room split into sides the way families always do, when they're pretending it's about principles instead of power. An older uncle stood up, puffing out his chest. She needs discipline, he declared. Back in my day, kids got spanked. No one cried about it. Lillian, you're too sensitive. Another relative nodded, muttering, Your father's just being honest. I wanted to scream. But then someone else stood. A cousin. Someone not close enough to be afraid, not distant enough to stay silent. This is too much, he said firmly. She's a child. You don't call your own granddaughter a failure in front of everyone. What is wrong with you? My father's face darkened. This is my family business, he roared. Who permitted you to butt in? The cousin didn't back down. I'm someone with a conscience, he shot back, and I can't sit here and watch adults destroy a child and call it love. At that point, the dinner table wasn't a table anymore. It was a battleground. Voices overlapped, people argued, someone pounded the table hard enough to rattle the glasses. Kids need pressure. No, that's abusive. It's Christmas. Stop fighting. She's embarrassing the family. You're all heartless. In the middle of all that chaos, I turned my head, instinctively looking for Riley. And she wasn't there. My heart stopped. For a terrifying second, my brain flashed images. Riley running outside into the cold. Riley hiding somewhere. Riley thinking she'd done something wrong and trying to disappear. Riley, I whispered, scanning. The room was too loud. No one heard me. No one cared. Then I saw her. In the far corner of the dining room, near the shadowed wall by the bookshelf, Riley had folded into herself like a wounded animal. Her knees were pulled to her chest, her face buried in her thighs, her shoulders shaking so hard it looked like her whole body might break apart. My 7-year-old daughter was sobbing silently while adults screamed over her head. And nobody was looking at her. Except Brian and Jordan. They had slipped away from Elena and her husband. Quiet as ghosts, they crossed the room and sat down beside Riley in the corner, blocking her from view like their bodies could shield her. Brian took her hand gently. Jordan used his sleeve to wipe her tears, whispering urgently. Don't cry, Riley, Jordan said. Grandpa was wrong. You're not a failure. You're the best cousin. Brian nodded fiercely, his voice trembling in a way kids' voices tremble when they're trying to be brave. You draw way better than us, he said. We love your drawings. We love you. Riley lifted her head slightly. Her eyes were swollen and red. She didn't speak. She just nodded, barely, and then curled back down, still shaking. Watching those two boys comfort her, something inside me tightened with a new kind of pain, because the children were the only ones behaving like family. The adults were just defending their pride. My anger didn't disappear. It sharpened. It focused into something colder than rage. Determination. I walked through the arguing relatives like they were furniture. I dropped to my knees beside Riley and pulled her into my arms. Her little hands grabbed the front of my sweater, clutching like she was afraid I'd vanish too. I'm here, I whispered, rubbing her back. I've got you. I won't let anyone hurt you again. Riley's sobs hit my shoulder, warm and desperate. And in that moment, a decision formed in my mind. So clearly, it felt like it had been waiting there for years. I stood up slowly, still holding Riley. The room quieted. One by one, people noticed my posture, my expression. They could tell something was about to happen. I turned toward my parents, toward Elena, toward the people who had just justified breaking a child in front of everyone. My voice came out calm. Too calm. From today on, I said, I'm cutting ties with this family. A wave of stunned silence rolled through the room. My mother gasped like I'd slapped her. Lillian, no, please, she cried, stepping forward. Don't do this. It's Christmas. Your father was just, He was cruel, I interrupted, and you all stood there and defended it. My father's lips curled. You want to leave, he said? Then leave. Don't come back. I don't have a failure of a daughter like you. Elena laughed, actually laughed, like it was a joke. You always overreact, she said. Dad said a few words, and you're acting like the world ended. You can't handle pressure. That's your problem. I didn't answer. I didn't argue, because arguing was what they wanted. I adjusted Riley in my arms, took a slow breath, and started walking toward the front door. Each step felt like it carried an entire lifetime. But I didn't hesitate. My daughter was more important than pride, more important than tradition, more important than blood. We reached the doorway, and then I heard it. The sound of small feet running fast behind us. Chairs scraping back. Someone yelling, sharp and panicked. Jordan, Brian, come back here right now. I froze. I turned, and what I saw made my breath catch. Brian and Jordan were holding hands tightly as they stepped into the center of the room, facing the adults. Their faces were flushed, but their eyes, Their eyes were different, not obedient, not afraid. Jordan took a deep breath. "I have something to say," he announced, voice shaking, but not weak. Elena's husband stepped forward, pointing like he could force his son into silence. "Jordan, sit down," he barked. "This is adult business. You don't interfere." But Jordan didn't move. For the first time, he didn't bow his head. He stared straight at his father, and something in his eyes looked broken open. "No," Jordan said. "I'm going to speak. I've been silent for too long." The room became so quiet you could hear the crackle of the fireplace. Jordan swallowed hard. And then he said the two words no one expected. "I'm so tired." Those two words didn't sound like they came from a 10-year-old. They sounded old, heavy, like they had been sitting in Jordan's chest for years, pressing down harder every day. The room didn't move. No one interrupted him this time. Jordan took another breath, his small shoulders rising and falling too quickly. "I wake up at 6 every morning," he said, voice trembling. "I study until 11 at night. Every day. Math, English, science, history, then debate practice, then tutoring. There are no days off." Elena's face went pale. Jordan kept going, the words spilling faster now. Like once the door opened, it couldn't be closed again. "I don't play. I don't have friends. I don't even remember the last time I watched cartoons." His voice cracked. "I'm always tired, even when I sleep." Someone in the room inhaled sharply. My sister stepped forward, panic flashing across her face. "Jordan, sweetheart, stop. This isn't—" But Jordan shook his head hard. "No," he said. "You always say this is for my own good, but you don't know what it feels like." Tears slid down his cheeks now, unashamed. "I cry in my room at night," he admitted. "I cry quietly so no one hears me. I hate waking up every morning because I know another long day is waiting." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Her husband stood frozen, his authority suddenly useless. Jordan looked around the room, at the relatives, at my parents, at Riley in my arms. And then he said something that detonated the silence. "Sometimes I wish I wasn't born into this family." The words hit like a bomb. Elena staggered backward, grabbing the chair behind her to keep from falling. Her husband's face drained of color, his mouth opening but no sound coming out. Jordan wasn't finished. He turned and looked directly at Riley. At my daughter, still clinging to me, her face half hidden against my shoulder. "I want to be like Riley," he said, voice breaking completely. "She gets hugged. She gets to draw and play. She smiles all the time." His chest hitched. I can't remember the last time I really smiled. Something inside me twisted painfully. I had spent years feeling inferior next to my sister's perfect family. And now I realized the perfection was a cage. Jordan wiped his face with his sleeve and looked back at his parents. "I don't want you to love me because I win awards," he said. "I want you to love me because I'm your son." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Is that asking too much?" He broke. Jordan's shoulders collapsed inward as sobs tore out of him. He covered his face, his small body shaking with the weight of everything he'd held in for so long. Before anyone could react, Brian spoke. "I hate those awards," he said quietly. Every head snapped toward him. Elena's husband blinked. "What?" Brian's tears streamed freely now. "I don't even like chess," he confessed. "I hate it. Every time I sit at the board, I want to knock everything over and run away." Elena stepped toward him instinctively. "Brian, we're proud of you." But Brian stepped back. That single step shattered her. "I only play because I'm scared," Brian sobbed. "Scared you'll look at me like I disappointed you. Those eyes, those are the eyes I'm most afraid of." Elena reached out again, desperate now. Brian shook his head. "I just want you to hug me," he cried. "Please, just one day. No talking about grades, no awards, no future plans. Just play with me." His voice cracked completely. "Is that so hard, Mom, Dad?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. My sister looked like a statue carved from grief. Her husband's shoulders slumped, his authority evaporating in real time. My parents stood speechless. My father, the man who had called my daughter a failure, now stared at two grandchildren who were breaking apart in front of him. For the first time that night, his expression changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pride. It was something close to fear, or regret. Jordan wiped his face and stood straighter, even as tears continued to fall. "I don't want Riley to be hurt like this," he said. "No one deserves that. Not her, not anyone." Brian moved closer to him, their hands finding each other again. Two children, standing together, protecting each other, protecting my daughter. The room felt unbearably small. My mother was crying openly now, hands pressed to her mouth. My father took a slow, heavy step forward. Then another. He stopped in front of me and Riley. Riley's body stiffened immediately. She curled deeper into my chest, her hands gripping my sweater tightly, shaking her head over and over. "I'm sorry," my father said hoarsely. "Riley, Grandpa didn't mean—" I stepped forward, placing myself fully between him and my daughter. "Stop," I said quietly. My father froze, his hands suspended in the air. "It's too late," I continued, my voice steady but deadly calm. "What you said tonight will stay with her forever. Children don't forget words like that." He looked like he'd been punched. "They grow up," I said. "They mature. But childhood wounds follow them for life." My father's shoulders sagged. That was the moment he realized the damage couldn't be undone. My mother grabbed my sleeve, sobbing. "Please, Lillian, give us a chance. Families can heal." I gently removed her hand. "Families don't humiliate children," I said. "Families don't turn Christmas into a nightmare." I looked around the room, at relatives staring at the floor, at others wiping tears, at Brian and Jordan still holding hands. I nodded to the boys, gratitude flooding my chest. Then I turned away. I picked Riley up fully, her arms wrapping around my neck, and I walked toward the door. Christmas dinner was over. Just as I reached the porch, small footsteps pounded behind us. "Wait!" Brian ran up, breathless. "Can we come to your house?" he asked. "To play with Riley?" I looked down at my daughter. She hesitated, then nodded. A small, fragile nod, but real. I smiled softly. "Of course." Jordan ran up too, holding out his fist. "Promise." I bumped my fist against theirs. A promise made between people who understood pain. Riley hugged the handmade cards they gave her to her chest. For the first time that night, she smiled. The door closed behind us with a soft click. It wasn't dramatic, no slam, no echo. Just a quiet sound marking the end of something that had existed my entire life. The cold night air wrapped around us as I stepped onto the porch, Riley still in my arms. Her breathing was uneven, little hiccups catching in her chest every few seconds. I held her tighter, rocking gently, whispering the same words over and over. "I've got you. I'm here. You're safe." Behind the closed door, I could still hear muffled voices, crying, confusion, adults scrambling to undo something that could not be unsaid. For a brief second, my mother opened the door. Her eyes were swollen, her voice trembled. "Lillian, please, your father didn't mean it. He grew up harsh. He doesn't know how to say things gently." I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who had watched her granddaughter break apart and chosen silence until it was too late. "He meant every word," I replied quietly, "and even if he didn't, Riley heard them." My mother reached out instinctively. Riley flinched. Her small body stiffened, her fingers digging into my coat. That reaction answered everything. I took a step back. "I won't force her," I said. "Not now, not ever." The door closed again, this time for good. The drive home was silent. Riley didn't hum, didn't sing, didn't ask questions. She stared out the window, her reflection ghosting across the glass. I wanted to fill the silence, to explain, to reassure her with words. But some pain doesn't want words. It wants time. That night, Riley slept in my bed, curled against my side like she used to after her father died. Her hand stayed wrapped in my shirt all night, afraid I might disappear if she let go. I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying my father's words again and again. Not because I doubted myself, but because I understood something terrifying. Words don't fade. They wait. They hide. And one day they come back. I promised myself I would never let another word like that reach her. Not from anyone. In the weeks that followed, the phone calls started. My mother first, crying, apologizing, begging. Then my father. Silent calls, missed calls, voicemails where he cleared his throat but didn't speak. Then my sister. Long messages about misunderstandings, about how emotions were high, about how we all said things we didn't mean. I deleted them all. Riley asked only one question. "Mom, am I really a failure?" I held her face in my hands, looked directly into her eyes, and said slowly, clearly, so it would sink into every part of her. "No, you are loved, and you are enough." She nodded, but I could tell. The wound had already been planted. Some nights she woke up crying. Some days, she stopped drawing halfway through a picture and asked if it was good enough. Every time, I reminded myself why I walked away. Because protecting her mattered more than fixing adults. 3 years have passed since that Christmas night. Riley is 10 years old now. She's taller, braver, still gentle, but stronger in ways only kids who've survived emotional storms can be. She still loves to draw. Her art has changed. There's more color now. More confidence in the lines. She draws people smiling. Big houses with open windows. Suns that take up half the page. She doesn't have trophies. She has joy. My parents still try. They send gifts, expensive ones, toys, clothes, letters filled with apologies written too late. Riley refuses them all. Every time they ask to see her, she hides behind me, shakes her head. Once, when my father came to the door unexpectedly, Riley whispered something that sliced straight through me. I'm still scared of Grandpa. So I asked them to leave. I don't force her. I don't persuade her. I respect her decision, because healing cannot be commanded. During these years, I've rebuilt my life quietly, carefully, with intention. I met someone, a man who doesn't raise his voice, who listens more than he speaks, who understands that loving someone with a child means loving the child first. He doesn't try to replace her father. He simply shows up, and sometimes that's everything. Brian and Jordan still come over on weekends. They laugh loudly now. They play. They fight over video games. They are finally children. Something changed after that night. My sister and her husband loosened their grip. Not because I demanded it, but because their children forced them to see the truth. Brian no longer plays chess. Jordan sleeps. And Riley? She smiles more freely these days. Sometimes she still asks about her grandparents. Sometimes she doesn't. And I let her decide. Because here's what I learned. Protect your child, even if it means losing your family. Children are innocent. Adults carry pride. Never confuse the two. And most importantly, respect your child's voice, even when it's small, even when it's scared. Because one day that voice will grow, and it will remember who stood beside it. What would you do? Would you push your child to forgive, or wait until they're ready? I chose to wait, and I don't regret it.